Welcome to Mountain Valley Today. We're certainly glad you've tuned in to join us today. Don't forget you can watch Mountain Valley Today on FTC TV, Channel 6 on Thursday evenings. Also, you can listen to us on WFPA 1400 in Fort Payne. And as always, you can watch us on mountainvalleynewspaper.com anytime any of the previous shows we've aired before. But today, we've got House Representative Nathaniel Ledbetter. So, Mr. Ledbetter, glad to have you with us today.
It's good to be here, David. I appreciate it.
So he's been a little bit on spring break. We're about midway through the legislative session. I won't tell you exactly what beach he spent a few days at, but I have not been there in a while. But we're glad to have you back with us. So tell us a little bit about where you've come from, what you've been doing, and see where we might be headed in the rest of the legislative session.
Well, I think we've had a productive first part of the session. You know, we come in early, and I was fortunate enough to be asked by leadership to serve on the platform committee, and so our job was to set the agenda for the caucus in the upcoming session. We had 7 of us that served there, and all the members come in on 3 different days and gave us their ideas. And out of that, we had, I think, some pretty good bills, and we were able to get those through. One of the things that we tried and was successful in doing is, you know, last year we carried the budget right up to the very end of the session and went into 2 more special sessions to take care of it. So our goal this time was to try to get the budgets out early, and we were able to do that. Of course, we got the general fund budget done and sent to the governor, and he vetoed it, as you may have seen or read. And we had come back, and the very first thing we did when we come back in the session was overrode his veto. The budget, the general fund budget is probably not exactly where we'd like to see it, but we've made great strides in a short period of time. I think we've tried to cover the gaps and done it without putting the burden of taxes on people's backs, you know. So I think it's a positive thing. Medicare is always going to be an issue with the state. It's consuming a tremendous amount of state dollars. I said Medicare, it's Medicaid, I'm sorry. So, you know, since 2010, it's actually went from $300 million to $700 million this year. So, and you know, that's one thing. When I went in, everybody talks about combining those 2 budgets and seeing, you know, with the general fund budget and the education trust fund and making the money go further. Of course, it's all taxpayer money. But the only concern that I have with that now, after looking at it, is, you know, Medicaid has actually kind of absorbed most of the general fund budget. And my concern is, if we were to combine those 2, I think we'd see it get into the education budget. Because it's, you know, it's more than doubled in just 5 years, and that's certainly a concern for me.
Well, I think one thing most people would be happy with is doing the budget, you know, getting the budget out of the way, because in years past, so many times we come back in, we're still trying to pass the budget. So I appreciate what you guys are doing to get the budget through and getting it passed, even though you had to override the veto. Mm-hmm. But one thing you said just a minute ago that I think is really important for our constituents to know is you've been serving on the platform. Mm-hmm. Sets the agenda. Is that correct? Platform committee?
We set it for this session, the House agenda for the caucus. And like I said, we had 6 different bills and 2 resolutions. One of the resolutions I carried myself, and it was a school safety resolution. You know, some of my concerns, and I'd carried it to the committee, and we'd heard some concerns from other ones. You know, was fortunate enough to get to use the lockdown in DeKalb County. Representative Haynes had found out about it, and they'd asked us to try it here as a trial basis, and we've done that. And out of that, we not only found that we've got problems with the efficiency of getting in touch with the administration and staff, but also we have issues with the schools being shut down and locked down safely just during day-to-day operation, and that's a concern of mine. I mean, in our rural county schools, we've built onto them so much, it's kind of hard to make sure every outside door is locked. So those type of issues come up. We had several others of different varieties come up. So what we decided to do was to create a task force, and so that has actually made it through the House and the Senate, and it's been put into act by the governor. So we'll be putting a 21-member committee of emergency personnel, teachers, principals, firefighters, all across the board, emergency personnel, along with staff from education, to try to come up with what we hope to be the safest schools in America. I mean, that's our goal. I mean, my concern is that I shouldn't be able to walk in the back door of my granddaughter's high school or elementary school and go pick her up.
Yeah.
You know, I should be going in the front, but it's just not happening, and that scares me
Yeah.
as a parent and grandparent, because my sons, as you know, were teachers, and I got grandkids in school, and it scares me that anybody can walk off the street and walk in any door. So those are some issues I think we need to face in the state, and I think this task force will tackle those problems.
Well, it's a sad day that in DeKalb County, Alabama, we have to worry about school safety, people coming in the back door to no telling for what reason. But you guys are well on the way to preparing and helping us get to that place. The lockdown thing we've been trying in DeKalb County was a great pilot,
It is.
and we appreciate you bringing that to us. It helps us all secure the building as best we can with all the many entrances coming in.
Right.
But hopefully this task force will be a model that other states will might want to follow.
Well, I think so. I think it's something that was needed, and I appreciate the platform committee taking it up, because, you know, if we got problems in DeKalb County, more than likely people in other parts of the state has got problems too, and we heard that. You know, when the House members would come in, you know, we were set up for 3 different days, like I said, and they would give us our concerns and what they had on their minds, and out of all those concerns and everybody meeting together, that was one of the issues we felt like needed to be addressed.
Well, that's a great thing. So this task force will be formed and look into helping all schools, or?
Yes.
Okay.
The way it's set up is that the task force has to be done by the end of this year. So they'll start in August, and they'll probably meet 3 or 4 times or whatever, and then they'll formulate a plan to make our schools the safest schools in the country. That's our hope. And
Mhm.
I think, well, I mean, we got some good people on it. I think the superintendents has a position on there, and I talked with the superintendent association, and I'd asked that Jimmy Cunningham be put on it from Fort Payne, which is in my district. But he's a good administrator, and I really think it gives us an opportunity to have more hands-on in what's going on too.
And a voice
And a
on that
voice.
committee.
Yeah, and that was the thing about the platform committee, getting to serve on it. We got to see what was coming through. You know, we knew we wanted to get the budgets out early, so that was one thing we addressed. We knew the teachers hadn't had a pay raise in a number of years, so we addressed that. We addressed the school safety issue. We addressed small business issue by incentivizing some of that. You know, we always incentivize a large manufacturing company or a large business, so this gives us an opportunity to incentivize small businesses. And I just recently, actually last week, dropped a bill to hopefully help small businesses even more in doing some abatements on personal property taxes. So we'll see how that works.
Well, let's go back and talk a little bit about the teacher raise, or teacher, I guess it is a raise. Basically, it's been a while since we've had one.
It's-
Not sure what that is.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't know how long it has been. I know it's been about 8 years since they got a 2% raise, and I think they had to start paying 2.5% in.
That's
at that
correct.
time.
That's correct.
And then the federal government had made you pay 2% more in your Social Security, so you actually lost 2%, I think.
Yeah.
So we were happy to be able to do that. Now, the education budget's been through the House, but it hadn't been through the Senate yet. And I think
Okay.
we'll pick it up either this week or next week. I don't see a lot of changes in it. I think we'll be able to maintain those raises, and rightfully so. And my hope is that you know, we can continue to work on this general fund budget, because our state employees need raises too. It's been 10 years or more since they've
Yeah.
had it. So it's a slow process. It's something we're not going to fix overnight, but I think we've made some strides in the right direction.
Well, do you anticipate the governor vetoing the the general fund budget?
He did veto it, and we overrode it. Last week, we actually, he sent it back to the House, and the Senate had overrode it, and then we went back in and overrode it as well. So the budget's in place. Now, he's talked about calling us in for a special session, but we'll see. I don't know that he has the appetite for it at this time.
Well, let's talk about education trust fund. You think since if it makes it through the Senate that he would veto that one as well?
I don't think so, and the reason I don't think so, because we've got a good education budget. Now, I wish that our general fund budget was as in good shape, but it's, you know, the education budget, last year we did a measure, what we went back had changed the cap on the rolling reserve. It was at 20%.
Right.
And we've got about a $6 billion budget for the state education system. So that would be about a $1.2 billion surplus before we could use any of that money to put back in the classroom.
Right.
We changed that down to about 7%, which makes us, after it gets above the threshold of somewhat over 400 million, then we can start putting money directly in the classrooms. So that enabled us this year, actually, the very first year, to go back, and we've started the Wired Act, got it through the House, had a little bit of trouble in the Senate, come to a compromise, got it through the Senate last week. So for the first time, this has been one of my goals since I took office. I mean, in DeKalb County, we're getting further and further behind technology. I really believe that. When I go into the school system like in Fort Payne and see what they're doing, and it's amazing at the work they do. And you know, when you have somebody in the third grade that can draw on an iPad, and the teacher has the ability to see it right then, and say, "What's a good job? You've done good, Susie." Or you go to I had a chance to go to the 11th grade classroom, and the teacher's ready to start teaching, and she looks on and said, "Listen, Johnny, you're not logged on. You need to be on." You know, so there's so much more, and I think it intrigues kids' minds to have the ability to use the technology.
Yeah.
And I feel like our kids has gotten behind because of it. So that's certainly been something that I've pushed for and have worked with Bill Poole, the chairman of the Education Trust Fund, and some other members to try to get that. And we got it through the Senate, and we'll be getting that money to the DeKalb County schools in the upcoming school year. So I'm excited about that. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal. Technology is something that every classroom needs, and needs working technology, not just being wired, but needs computer enhancement, all kinds of things to just help our kids be competitive with the outside world, or right here even in DeKalb County, because there's a lot of technological jobs right here in DeKalb County that I don't think people are really aware of. We just got to help make them become more aware of all the automation that's actually already here.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about it is we both know, because we do have an opportunity to kind of look at different industry from both my job and yours, it's becoming more and more.
Yes.
You know, and to not have our kids the ability to use it on a day-to-day basis, I think is not fair to our kids. And I'm not throwing that on anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that I think it's part of my job. If I do my job, is to try to find a way to put funding in the system where we can start using it in DeKalb County schools, and we're there. I mean, we'll see up that next year. And going in, when I got elected, that was one of my goals. So, you know, the good Lord's blessed us to have the opportunity to see that formation come through.
Yeah. Well, what else is going on in the legislative session? Because I could talk about school issues all day long. So I know we've talked a little bit about prisons, and so tell me where we are looking at that, because we definitely do not want the federal government coming in and taking over prisons. So
Yeah.
I know that's been an issue.
It is an issue. The Prison Reform Act, the one that Governor Bentley had asked for, and the way it would work is that they would eliminate like 11 prisons in the state and consolidate those into 4. Which is, you know, it's a duplication of services that you don't have to have. So it's not a bad idea. The Senate's passed it. I mean, it's back to, we'll see it either this week or next week. The only concerns I have about it, the two concerns is I want to see the numbers. You know, show me where it's going to work, and that it's not going to cost us more money, first of all. And like you said, with our overcrowded conditions, we've got to do something. We have no choice. We're at 190% right now. And if we don't do something, the federal government will come in and take over, and we certainly don't want that. We probably can't afford that.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to look at this seriously, and if the numbers work, it would be something I could support. The only issue that I've got with it, they're wanting to do probably a one bid process to take care of all 4 of them. We'll have to talk through that. I want to see the bid be transparent, and everybody that has the opportunity, the contractors that can bid on those jobs, I want to see them have Alabama people working at those facilities if we do indeed go through with the bond issue and build these prisons. So those are 2 issues I've got to look at and study. And, you know, if consolidation works and we can do in 4 prisons what we're doing in 11, there's a possibility we might see it come.
Where do you think those prisons would actually be built? I mean, are that sort of spread them out in different locations, or take a site where they are and remodel? But I don't know how you remodel a prison that's been there a while.
No, the problem you got with like Tutwiler and Tuscaloosa, I mean, it's been down there for so long. I mean, like in the 20s or something like that. So that, you know, there's nothing there for it's a daily grind just to try to keep it operational. Of course, it hadn't been used, but I mean, and our other prisons are getting like that too. So that's part of the problem is the prisons we got today is so outdated. And, I think that's gonna be part of the maintenance and the upkeep it's costing now. Initially with the new prisons you wouldn't have. So I think that's part of the hope too. As far as where they're gonna be located, I don't have the geographics on it at this time.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about the tax that we talked about for roads, to bring that money back. I know we had talked about that earlier. Is that moving through the legislature?
It is. The mechanism of funding, how it would be split was in debate last week. We didn't get through it. But it basically, what it does is just say how it has to be split up. I think Central Livingston had helped with that. What happened is they tried to take a bigger portion of the state and not give as much to the county and the city governments. So they're trying to work that out. The tax, as far as the gas tax, I think it's probably an uphill battle at this point. I don't know that, I think it's something that would have to grab traction that it doesn't have right now. So we'll see how that plays out. We just got 10 more days. It'd be tough probably now at this point to get it through the House and the Senate.
Well, I wondered how that was going because I'd heard several town hall meetings and people were actually talking positively about it. If those dollars would come back to DeKalb County and we could use them to help with our roads infrastructure.
Yeah, that bill actually come through my committee. I serve on the Transportation Committee, and that was my concern. When that bill come up that would mandate that the money had to go just to roads and bridges, can't be used for anything else, can't be used for salaries, can't be used for administrative, just roads and bridges. And then the other thing was the split for the cities and the counties was on a proportional basis. And then, we voted it out of committee just to get the debate on the floor. But that was the main thing. And like I said, as far as the tax coming, I really think it's probably got an uphill battle now.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. That I know we talked about teacher pay possibly. We've been hearing a lot about evaluations. And so tell us where we're looking as far as teacher and public employee evaluations.
That's probably in the RAISE Act, I guess you've heard about. I like Dale Marsh is the president pro tem of the Senate, and that's his bill, and it has went through several different transactions before, and I think they're looking at it in the Senate. It might have got through the Senate last week, I'm not sure, but I have a problem with the bill because of the evaluation process. I think from my standpoint, we got principals and superintendents in place that should evaluate their employees, and I think they do. To be honest with you, I'm opposed to that bill just from the standpoint of, I think we need to let the teachers teach. And we put too much on them already. They got too much red tape, too much paperwork, too much of overhead, that they have to take care of. And then once they get done with that, we ask them to teach school.
Yeah.
I think it's time we let the teachers teach. I'm not for putting anything else on them. Now, there's been some discussion in this bill about expanding the tenure law. And which I don't have a heartburn about the tenure law one way or the other, because the teachers I talk to say, I'm going to do my job. My son's a teacher, and he said, Daddy, I'm not worried about tenure because I'm going to do my job. So I think most people see that, and it may give the administrators a little more flexibility to move it to 4 or 5 years of some of the talk. But as far as evaluating teachers with students or with parents, I'm against it. I just don't think it's right. And first of all, we have got some schools in our county that's got language barriers.
Right.
And it'd be very hard for the parent of somebody that doesn't speak English to evaluate you as a teacher.
Right.
Or it'd be very hard for the kids that's in a certain class or a certain grade to evaluate a teacher they had last year. So I'm just not in favor of it. I think, I don't think it's a bill that we need for our education system. And I like Dale. He's a good guy, and I think he does a good job. We don't always agree on everything.
Well, that's part of the legislative process. You're not supposed to always agree with somebody. That's where you have the dialogue and you bring different viewpoints together. And, I appreciate your candor. Well, tell us a little bit more what you see coming down the road. I know something that people are going to be asking about is what do you think about this impeachment thing with the governor? You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I don't. The thing is, last week when we went back, I seen the impeachment papers, and the thing about it is, I think we got a job to do. And our job is to do the people's work in Montgomery. You know, what they sent us down there to do is to try to create a good business environment, you know, and try to do with smaller and smarter government. You know, I don't see it being the House or the Senate's job to impeach anybody, the governor or anybody else. And not to get me wrong, I have got concerns about Governor Bentley, and I've got concerns about what's going on. I don't think it puts us in good light with the state of Alabama. But we as legislators, we don't have the skills or abilities. I mean, we've got an ethics commission. That's their job. You know, and on the paperwork that was turned in, I didn't see any legal grounds. You know, we can talk about incompetence all day, and that was part of it. You know, there's a lot of people that, you know, when do you start or stop when you talk about incompetence? So I don't like what's going on. You know, I think there comes a point between Robert Bentley and his God about how he acts and what he does.
Right.
I'm disappointed. I'd be telling you a story if I wasn't. But I also think that the people voted me in to do a job, and that's what I intend to do. And then we got an ethics commission to do a job. And if there's a violation of some kind of law, then I expect them to do their job. That's their job. So
Right.
that's kind of where I fall in it.
Well, I appreciate your candor because I know people are watching are going to be thinking what's going on and how do you feel, what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
But we've got 9-10 more days. How productive are we going to be as we look into those few more days, the last leg of the legislative session? What are some things you see coming?
Well, I think we've got a lot of, you know, like I told you, I dropped a bill last week. Don't know if I can get it through this late in the game, but the reason I went ahead and put it in is because I want to try to get through next year really was my goal. And so we'll be working on that. We had one bill that's actually a domestic violence bill that we had introduced this year. It's going through Senate committee this week. And so I'd asked Senator Livingston to carry it in the Senate. If we can get it through committee, it just requires a vote in the Senate, and we'll be able to make that law. So, you know, we got a lot of things going on. I think it'll be productive for the state, and I think it'll be good. I think we'll have some productive meetings. We got to get the Senate's got to get through the education budget, and I think they'll do that in short order. And once that's done, you know, the bills that we've talked about, and you know, a lot of people was interested in the lottery. I'll be honest with you. I thought when we first started the session, we had 2 bills turned in early, and the lottery might come up and be an issue, but I think it's not going to be. I think leadership thinks it'll take too much from the session and drain it too much to try to get anything, and it really hadn't got on the floor yet. So as far as the lottery, I know some people will be disappointed in that. Some people will be happy. You know, I'm not a lottery person. I wouldn't vote for the lottery. I mean, I just wouldn't. Somebody was asking me when it got up to $1.5 billion if I had a ticket. I said, you know, I'm not a winner because I wouldn't buy one if it's $2 billion. I just wouldn't. Some people do. I mean, that's fine. That's their choice. But I think it's the people's right to vote. I'd always allow the people to vote on something like that. And a lot of people would like to have that opportunity to vote against it. So maybe it'll go away, and a lot of people would like to vote for it, and that's fine. That's their choice. But I think there's certain issues, and that being one of them, that the people deserve the right to vote on. And as a constitutional amendment, of course, they'd have to vote on it.
Well, that's one thing I've always been curious with. We got a legislative session. We worked half the way, and now we've got like 9 or 10 days. And it's really hard to get a lot accomplished in that short amount of time because there's so many people want to get approved as we're getting closer.
Yeah. The bill, I can give you an example. The bill I turned in last week was House Bill 511, that'll be the numbers, HB 511. We've already had over 511 bills turned in on the House side, and I dare say there's probably been close to that on the Senate side. So we'll see probably 1,000 bills this year that has been introduced or is coming up. We may pass 200 of them, maybe 190. But yeah, that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's set up that it's got to go through all the different chambers for a reason, you know, and it's to try to, sometimes it's just as important to kill bad legislation as it is to create good legislation, and that happens some. We had a bill last week that I thought took away from our school system. It wasn't a terrible bill, but I just thought it would take money away from our system, so I voted against it. And a good friend of mine was carrying the bill, and I had to explain to him it's nothing, you know, it's none of it's personal. It's just that, you know, I feel like we've got a good special needs programs in DeKalb County, and it would take the special needs money from each student and put them in private schools if they wanted to do that. Well, which each student, there's about $5,500 would follow them from a public school to a private school. And the thing is, we got two very good schools in DeKalb County. We're blessed to have the one at Fife, the one at Ider, and they do a great job. I mean, it's a godsend for those parents. And I don't think we ought to take our public education money and put it in private schools like
Right.
that. So I voted against it, and the sponsor's a good friend of mine. But you know, it's just one of those things that we didn't agree on that.
Well, and that's part of the democratic process. I mean, you're down there representing what you feel is best, and just like I'm sure that friend of yours is as well. But that brings all of us to the table to represent people from our districts, and you know, I really appreciate you standing up for what you believe in.
Well, I mean, I think that's one thing that, you know, as a legislator that we've got to do. I think the people from, and I feel honored. I mean, it really is. It's an honor for the people of this district to have enough faith in me to send me to be their voice. And when I make those decisions, you know, I try to make them wisely with a level head. And you know, there's times I pray about it.
Yeah.
I think that's important. But I think, you know, how would the people at home want this to go? It's
Yeah.
just, and a lot of times, I do get the opportunity to see things that they may not. You know, the process of how it goes and how it affects different agencies and how it's going to affect them. So, you know, I try to do the best, and you don't get it all right. You know, you can't. I mean, we vote so many times each year. There's no way we mess up occasionally, and you know, I understand that too. But
Well, you just have to go and do the best you can, and we certainly appreciate you doing that. I'm glad you had a good vacation, but it's time to go back and get busy again. And I guess, is there anything we as a group around here need to be calling, talking to anybody, anything really that's coming up big, controversial you can think of that we might need to?
you know, one thing that's grabbed a lot of attention, David, is let's see, how's that? Let me see how. But it's carrying a pistol in your car. You know, the bill come through the Senate last week that allows you to carry a pistol without a permit in your car. And we'll see that come to the House floor. And you know, I'm for that bill. I'm not against it. And the reason I'm not, and I know some law officers are opposed to it, and I understand that. And I had an opportunity about a month ago, I guess, from our area, the Jackson and DeKalb chiefs had called me and asked me if I'd come speak to them and meet with them. And I had a good chance to sit down and talk to them. And the thing that some of their concerns is, you know, well, if we don't have a permit, we don't know how to trace it, and that's legitimate. But, you know, my thing with them was, you know, the people that's legal and law abiding are going to be the ones that's got permits anyway. You
Yeah.
know, so you're not going to have to worry about that. So I think, you know, we got a Second Amendment right, and it's it's right to bear arms, and I think I really think the bill will pass. So we'll see that, and it's had a lot of interest with that. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that comes out, but I feel like it'll probably get favorable vote.
Well, I tell you what, I never realized I've heard these numbers before, but I never realized that they're like 500 in one and 500 in the other, and then you got to bring them together, and that's a bigger job than I really realized it actually was. So I guess you're never too old to learn.
No, that's the thing. I had an opportunity. Jim Cunningham, superintendent from Fort Payne, was with us one afternoon. Actually, it was the night of the State of the State, so he went with us. And he was talking about it. He said, I didn't know there's so much going on every afternoon. And most of the time in Montgomery, my day will start at about 7 in the morning. And I'll get home anywhere between 8:30 and 9 at night, home or back to the hotel, I
Yeah.
should say. So it's you stay busy. There's no question about that. Going to committee meetings, and then you have meetings after sessions out with different organizations. And, all in all, the process it works. We may not agree with all of it, and I don't agree with all of it. But it works.
Well, and that's one thing too. Sometimes we, as community people, we see our little piece of the pie, but there's a huge, huge picture out there that you guys are having to look out for the entire state, not just our neck of the woods. And so I certainly do appreciate all that you do to represent us down there, and it's good to talk with you today.
I enjoyed it. It's good to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. That's one thing that we've tried to do. We've had meetings in just about every city that we represent, and we were, the other night, a few weeks ago in Ider, we probably had 125 people.
Yeah.
And it's good to see people come out and you get to ask those questions, and they get to hear it from you firsthand. And that's one thing I always want to bring back to the district, is the ability for people to get in touch with me and have that communications back and forth.
Well, I know this is not about the legislative session, but what do you think about the presidential election? Is that interesting or what?
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. As you know, I ran as a delegate for Marco Rubio and won statewide actually. So, but unfortunately, he didn't hit the 20% threshold, so I didn't get to go to Cleveland. So, but anyway, it's interesting. No question about that.
Well, I tell you, where it started and where it is today, you never know what's going to be the final turnout. But we certainly do appreciate you all watching us today. And don't forget, you can watch us on Channel 6 on Farmers Telephone TV. You can listen to us on WFPA 1400 AM. And also, you can watch any episode on mountainvalleynewspaper.com. Thank you so much, and tell a friend about us. Hope you'll watch us again.